Okay, so we're going to invite our first speaker up, who's a new partner. His name's Antoine, and he's the CEO and founder of Qobra. Give him a round of applause, please. Do you want the clicker or do you want me to click? Do you want me to click? You're a snake. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Antoine. I'm the CEO of Qobra. Thanks, James, for having me here tonight. And I'm here with my little friend to tell you a story about the Qobra effect, if you don't know it. It was back in India, when it was a British colony. There was lots of snakes, cobras, in the city of New Delhi. So what the government did is that they implemented an incentive program for everyone that would bring dead cobras. It started to work well. People were killing cobras and getting commissions. And what some smart folks did is that they decided to raise cobras at home to earn more money. So when the government heard about it, what they decided to do is to shut down the incentive program because they didn't want this to happen. And what did all these folks that had cobras at home? They just released them in the city. So what happened is that the city ended up with more cobras at the end than before the incentive program. And you can check it online. There's a Wikipedia page about the Qobra effect. It's when an incentive program creates the opposite effect of what was originally intended. So we don't want side effects to happen at our customers, but we like the story, so we chose Qobra as a name. So to all sales leaders here, sales compensation is one of the critical parts of your go-to-market strategy. Mark Oberge, the former VP of sales from HubSpot, he used to say that sales compensation is probably the best tool you have to drive business strategy. And yet, we believe at Qobra that sales compensation is broken. Why? Because most companies compute sales commissions in spreadsheets with extracted data from Salesforce, and it just gets a pure nightmare. Why? Because these spreadsheets, they are not real-time, they contain errors, they're not up-to-date, it's long to build, costly to maintain, and the reps, they hate it. So they get frustrated, and I'm not even taking into account all the exceptions, small adjustments, splits that can happen. So at most companies, sales compensation means more frustration than motivation and trust. And this is what we're fighting, and this is the problem that we are solving. We build a SaaS product that helps make sales compensation a true business driver again by first synchronizing with your tools, so Salesforce or any other CRM. Second, the sales ops, they can build the different comp plans flexibly and easily in the tool so that the reps and then the managers have real-time access to compensation data. So today we have a bit more than 100 happy customers, including Spendesk, Payfit, GoOne, CoachHub, Celonis, Redshift, and it allowed us to earn the high performer rating on J2 and product excellence from Cloud Ratings. So really happy to now partner with Sales Confidence, which happens to be the place to be when it comes to meeting with sales professionals and sales leaders in London. And happy to have a chat with you later tonight, or with Alex, our Scottish guy. Can't see where he is, right here. That will be also more than happy to talk to you. So yeah, enjoy tonight, and see you.
If I was to say one word about the Sales Confidence membership, I would say inspiring. What first attracted me to the Sales Confidence membership was a real chance to have professional development and understanding and peers and training and master classes, and a chance also to share my own experience and support other, perhaps less experienced sales professionals within the industry. Of the various features and benefits of being a Sales Confidence member, I think the chance to have peers that I can bounce ideas, share challenges, learn from their experience, share my experience in a real trusting and safe environment. So one of the things that I've taken away from Sales Confidence membership that's impacted on my role is an understanding of some of the challenges that's going on in SaaS and the ecosystems that they think is going to be developed over the next few years. And it's really changed my thinking about some of the strategic plans that I've got for developing my business.
Can I invite our next speaker up, Jamie? Jamie is the Business Development Director at Apprentify. How many of you in this room hire SDRs? How many of you? Okay. So right now, our dedicated and recommended SDR recruitment partner is the wonderful Venetrix, and you need to know who they are. And right now, we just hired our 2 most recent SDRs from Venetrix. However, there is also another option whereby we're thinking about the future of apprenticeships. And I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but sales apprenticeships have become a new de rigueur in the standard of supporting young people get into tech sales. And this is actually a new channel to support young people that maybe have not discovered sales before. They're learning about it for the first time, and there's an opportunity to go through a training program and work with a provider like Apprentify on upskilling them. So I just wanted to invite Jamie up for a couple of minutes just to share who Apprentify are and who you support, Jamie, and we can just share a bit more about a program we've launched tonight for the very first time, specifically for SDRs.
Cool. I'll just check this is working. Yeah, I don't have a Qobra, so Antoine, that's quite a hard act to follow. Yeah, good work. James, thank you. Just to kind of set the scene, I wanted to put 3 people out there that I don't know if everyone knows all 3 of these people, but does anyone have any idea what these 3 people have in common? Indra Nooyi at the top, by the way, CEO of Pepsi, and then you got Kobe and Arnie, who's a personal favourite of mine. Any ideas? Do they?
They all live in California.
If they all live in Cali, then that's amazing. I didn't know that. But to put you out of the misery, they're all massive, massive advocates of training innovation. And that kind of leads into and stems into what we're talking about and trying to work out how this apprenticeship space that I work in and my company works in can support your businesses and being innovative versus your competitors. So yeah, if we go on to the next page. Very quickly, James said I've got 3 minutes, so I'm going to be as quick as possible. Some facts there just about the business I work for. If you're thinking there's hundreds of providers, hundreds of training companies that you can work with, it's true. Just to give peace of mind as to who we are, we're Ofsted Outstanding, that's top 1.6%. Top 3 rising stars in the UK's education sector. That was the Times, actually, did an article on that over Christmas. That's online. And we were finalists in the ASC's Provider of the Year Award. That's like winning an Oscar in our space, so we're good at what we do. Why train your staff? Performance increase. In 2022, the average performance increase in training staff was estimated to be between 10 to 20%. Retention, 40%. And that's with an average staff cost of £30,000 if you lose a member of your staff in 2022. So with that retention increase, there's obviously indirect revenue benefits there, or financial benefits. Also, it's about developing critical skills needed to differentiate yourselves from the competitors, because we're in a tough market. You know, it's saturated. I had a few conversations before this, and people are saying it's a saturated market. It's hard. How do we differentiate ourselves? Part of that is gaining the knowledge or providing your younger, early careers staff the opportunity to learn things that's going to differentiate themselves and stand out against the other people that are doing the same as you guys. Okay?
This is, just to add, this is genuinely something unique that we really believe in supporting the next generation of salespeople. You'll hear the mission I talk about a lot, which is helping you at each stage of your career, wherever you're at. But you're not going to get to this stage of your career unless you have a start. And this is why this type of program is so specialized and bespoke.
It is, and bespoke's the right word, because what we've done and where this concept came from is myself and James and the CRO at my business, Sam, had a sit down a few months ago, and we said, you know, is there a gap in the market? Is there something that we can offer? Because all the apprenticeship programs that are out there are quite specific. So we've taken one and reconfigured it and made it something that's unique. It's one of a kind, and it addresses areas that we think is most important for people going to their first position in the IT or SaaS space. And that's covering all areas, really. So it could be anything from customer support, sales engineers, technical assistants, your SDRs, and everything in between. It's relevant for all these guys and girls. 3 key areas that it would cover: fundamentals of IT, things like unified comms, the cloud, etc. Just giving them that knowledge so that they're credible when they're having those conversations. We also go through customer service essentials, so the A to Z of sales, what the life cycle looks like, open close techniques, simple stuff that you'd expect there to be in any kind of customer service or sales training program, and a few additional advanced techniques. This was based on some of the events that James has run in the last year, actually, and we got together and said what the three, not necessarily key, but what three things would be really powerful in the sales space right now and is relevant within the IT SaaS world. And we decided the BANT, MEDIC, and the Jolt effect were the three that have been featured and talked about most. So we've added modules in, and you don't get those modules in this particular program with other providers. We've got skills sessions that our coaches will roll them out for in this program too. So that leads on to the next bit, which is the launch. Because this is a collab between James and our company. There's two things that we're going to be doing. In May 2023, there's a brochure that you guys have got in front of you. I think we put one out every 3 chairs. There's a handful printed if anyone else wants to take any home with them. That explains exactly what this program delivers. So what's trained in this particular course that we've put together. And in May, we're going to do the first class. So for the first 15 people, we've reserved one of our trainers for this. And we're going to invite companies to come to us and say, yes, we've got a handful of new people, 1, 2, 3, 4, whoever it might be, that fall into some of the positions that I've mentioned earlier and that you'd like to put onto this program. And they'll be part of an open cohort that we'd roll out. It will last about 12 to 13 months. There's about 9 months of training, on average 6 hours per week, that we factor into their day-to-days. And I can talk you through how that works in practice after this, should you want to find out more. Thereafter, Thursday, the 18th of May, we're going to do a Sales Confidence and Apprentify SDR Assessment Day. This is in person. The most hired position, or the most open position that we've seen in the past number of months within this community, are for SDRs. You guys are looking for real hungry, ambitious, junior talent that's going to come through and drive that revenue for your business and drive those opportunities. So we're going to run this day together. A venue still to be confirmed, a couple of options there. We've put aside this date, and we're going to invite a handful of clients within the Sales Confidence community to come along to that day, talk about your business, why join my business, and then we're going to do a load of role plays, tests, and exercises after they've already gone through a 2-stage interview process to be invited to that day, with the plan for you guys to make offers and to hire a load of high-quality new SDRs through this event. And they'll then go on to the IT SaaS Accelerator program in that second class that will be rolled out in June. So that's what we're launching. It is unique, it's innovative, it's taken us a number of months really to pull this together and to design something for this particular specific IT and SaaS space. So I hope it's something you guys are interested in finding out more about. Please reach out to me if you'd like to find out more, or James,
Awesome.
And we'll take it from there.
Thanks very much, Jamie.
The reason I've come here today is because I get a lot of value out of sales confidence events. I've met a lot of peers and industry experts that have helped me in growing and developing not just myself, but my team as well. So I wanted to come and see David, who is I'm a big fan of David, and I speak to him quite a lot. And also some other speakers that I haven't come across before. The thing that's really made the biggest impact is probably the peer group. So I've been able to speak to people and meet people that are going through the same challenges as me, trying to build and scale a team to have more weapons in my arsenal to deliver a better service to my team and ultimately my company as well. I'm a big believer in leading from the front. So I've done a talk with Sales Confidence, funny enough, on leading with authenticity, and being able to show my team that I'm also stepping out of my comfort zone while I'm not on the phones with them. I am doing more public speaking, and that was a big goal of mine this year. So that has massively impacted and solely impacted by Sales Confidence. After doing a speech, I've been interviewed, I've been on a podcast, I've been interviewed by somebody else. Like it's just almost created this snowball effect. And I think the ultimate value comes from that network. So people get to know you, they get to know what they like about you, and then you naturally become a bigger voice in the industry. If I was to say one word about Sales Confidence, it would be amazing.
One of the ways that I've found, that I've had to navigate these challenging markets is actually to get access to a coach and have an individual coach support me. So we've got our head coach up this evening. Phil Nayna is my personal coach. Can we just bring you up to the stage and say hello, Phil? Round of applause. So we've been working right now. Phil's been working with me twice a month on how I can reframe what I'm doing with sales confidence and really unlock my potential and figure out, how I can navigate these difficult times and the challenges that I have. Some of you may know that I'm diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It's a mood disorder. So it actually makes it very difficult for me to kind of focus my attention, and I kind of experience highs and lows. And not everybody goes through that, fortunately, but I know right now it can be a stressful time for people. And so I want you to think about how you can actually invest in yourself to find that support. And someone like Phil is kind of really good at supporting you with that coaching. Maybe you can just explain how you operate, Phil, and how you work with people.
Yeah, so thanks, James. Thanks for the intro. So I've been working with James since about August. James and I go back quite a long way. We used to work together at LinkedIn 10 years ago or so now. Last August we got back in touch, and together we've launched the membership program for sales confidence, and I've been coaching the premium members. So anyone that joins a premium membership gets 2 free coaching sessions, or 2 sessions included in their membership when they join. In terms of what that entails, it covers lots of different things, but I guess our real kind of message to the market is what we do is we help people with their mindset, their well-being, and their performance. That gets delivered in many different ways, but if we're talking about the one-on-one coaching, I think the primary benefit of one-on-one coaching is for a coach to create a thinking container for you to question any beliefs you have that might be capping you, any perspectives you have that might be stopping you seeing solutions that might be more suitable for what you need to do. And to help you build the confidence to question and challenge your rationale so that you can find the right solutions to the problems that you're facing. I guess together the second bit that we're doing is we're launching the membership program for businesses. So we're taking this to market. We want businesses to start paying for their team members to be part of the sales confidence membership. And as we launch that, we're leading with a product called the Inner Game of Sales, and essentially it's based on a theory from Timothy Galway, who is probably without the crude term, he's the OG of performance coaching. And essentially, what he talks about performance being he talks about a performance equation where he says performance equals potential minus interference. And essentially what he's saying is the main way we can impact performance is by reducing interference. So how do we reduce interference? How do we create environments where people are where they're not derailed by their thoughts, by their emotions, by the difficult things going on inside them? And coaching really is about helping people to figure that out, to figure out how they can manage their own psychology so that they can perform at their best. And that's what I'm working with James on.
And I think I'm a big believer in, who you surround yourself in terms of your inner circle. Who have you got on your team? Who have you got in your corner right now supporting you at an individual level? Have you got a mentor? Have you got a coach? Have you got someone supporting you one-to-one? And are you supporting your team in that way? And I think these are genuinely important areas that we believe that everyone should get access to. So maybe you can just summarise kind of what the one-to-one support is we offer and the group coaching styles that we're going to provide later on.
Yeah, so the one-to-one for members, like I say, if you join the premium membership, you get 2 free sessions. For the B2B, essentially what we're leading with 2 products. One is coaching for leaders, senior managers. The other is coaching days. So that's essentially you can hire a coach. Initially, for the first 5 clients, it will be myself. We're also building a team of coaches that can deliver different types of coaching for your organisation. And a set of coaching days, essentially, a coach comes in for the day, and your employees can book in for 60-minute slots, 75-minute slots. The other big thing that we're talking about, you not hear me?
Sorry. I guess in terms of the group stuff, the program we're launching with it's a 12-week program, and it's called the Inner Game of Sales. And essentially, we'll take up to 10 people, up to 10 of your salespeople, through a 12-week curriculum, which will allow them to really kind of investigate and explore how their psychology impacts performance.
Amazing.
The reason I was attracted to the Sales Confidence membership to begin with is that it's a community of sales professionals by sales professionals, where people come together to help each other out, to continue learning together, supporting each other. But it's also a psychologically safe space, which in sales is something that you don't come across very often. And the members of the team have become friends, right? It's very much a reunion where you get to meet people that are doing similar things than you in different environments and learning from each other and supporting each other at the same time. I personally love the masterclasses. Every week we've got different topics that allow me to continue developing myself and learning new things, but also understand what is happening in the market in areas that I may not be focused on as much. I'm at the moment coaching the SDRs within the Sales Confidence team, but not just that. James, a couple of weeks ago, passed on a lead that is potentially going to be closing very shortly too soon as well. So there's a direct impact on the business from the people that I'm meeting, but also in my own development, in who I am as a person. And one thing that I haven't mentioned, but that is extremely key and sets the membership apart from other memberships out there, is the people in it.
So we're going to invite our first 7-minute speaker up. His name's David Bentham. He started at Cognizant over 4 years ago as an SDR, and he's grown the SDR business to over 45 SDRs globally. And Cognizant, when I met them 5 years ago, James Islay, the founder there at the back, literally was doing $500,000 turnover. They're now doing 55 million turnover. So massive round of applause to Cognizant and David. You're up on stage.
I'm doing this as a bit of a best man speech, so I apologise in advance. We've got this massive SKO and all of the global leaders are coming over, so this has been a little rushed, but I'm not pitching and I don't have a prop, so all right. Hello, my name is David Bentham. I'm the Director of Sales Development at Cognizant. I've always heard that at the start of every one of these talks, you have to do a little bit of social proofing. Now, James has already done a little bit for me and stole my thunder. But 4 years ago, I joined Cognizant. We had 5 SDRs back then, and now we're actually 80 globally over those 4 years. And like James mentioned, when I joined, we were 2 million ARR. Is this working? Yeah. 2 million ARR, and now we're over 50. On top of that, in the macroeconomic climate that we're already in Q1, we finished 140% of target. SDR, my SDR team, my wonderful SDR team that are here today, sourced over half of all of the revenue, including the biggest deal in Cognizant's history in Q1. So today, what I really wanted to talk to everybody about was the importance of a feedback culture. A few years ago, I read a book called Black Box Thinking by Matthew Said. I don't know whether anybody's read that before, but if you haven't, you have to read it. In the book, he explains the difference between the airline industry and hospitals in their approach to feedback and the impact that it has on preventable errors. In planes, if people don't know, there's a black box, and essentially the black box is indestructible. When planes crash, you can pick up that black box and you can read any data that's in it. And essentially that black box is shared with every single airline. By law, it's shared with every single airline. And as a result, today we know that planes are the safest mode of transport out of anybody else. On the other hand, hospitals, mistakes also happen. And unfortunately, tragedies happen as a result. The approach, as Matthew highlights, is to protect the medical staff at all costs. And unfortunately, in this book, he explains the fact that actually hospitals, there's as many mistakes as ever as a result of the fact that they're never taking feedback and learning from it. So we know feedback's important. I've got a group of sales leaders in front of me, and so the big question is how, as sales leaders, can we promote that culture of feedback? And for me, it starts by setting 2 expectations when employees first come in. Firstly, all sales individuals are working towards the same company objective. And ultimately, as we go closer to that company objective, we all succeed together, right? The revenue is ultimately the target. The more revenue we're generating, the more promotions for the team, the more pay rises that are available, and everyone should be totally aligned to that. And secondly, and this is the other foundation, feedback is a gift in our team. It should always be delivered with empathy, and there should never be any mention of anything personal, but ultimately, feedback is always and will always be a gift. Once we've built those 2 foundations, we're able to create channels of feedback that help individuals and the organization as a whole learn and improve. One thing I've seen over the years is good leaders give clear feedback to their team members and aren't afraid to do so. People mostly want to get better. And as much as we're corporately trained to do one-to-ones, QBRs, CDCs, whatever you want to call them, how often are you seeing leaders go to those meetings and really not deliver the feedback that they want to give and not deliver the honest feedback that their team deserves? Often, and mostly what I've seen, hiding behind any numbers for objective reasons. One thing that I see time and time again is a whole management team agreeing on a piece of feedback about an individual who is underperforming, and they're too worried to give them that feedback because they're so worried about hurting their personal feelings. Fortunately, my first manager at Cognizant had the absolute opposite thought patterns. I'd arrived at Cognizant as an SDR, and had been earmarked very early. I had a bit of management experience, and basically I'd been earmarked to lead the SDR team very shortly after joining. So month 3, and my manager pulled me into a one-to-one and said that despite strong performance metrically, she would not be able to put me into that position. And I quote, the reason was, nobody likes you, Dave. It was as simple as that. I'd basically come from a very different sales culture. It was your classical, dog-eat-dog, toxic competitiveness. My old manager was this Scottish guy who said, literally, if you've hit target, you've done your job. That's it, right? So you shouldn't celebrate it until we're overachieving. I mean, I could go on and on about the stories, but that's all I knew. That was the only sales culture that I'd been in. So I came to Cognizant, and I acted in exactly the same way. Anyway, I took that feedback very badly, as you can imagine. I went home, and I'm pretty sure, as embarrassers, don't judge me for this, I'm pretty sure I cried in front of my partner at the time, and I was just in a sulk for about a week. And then after that week, I then said, you know what, screw it. I'll play her game, right? And I was overly, and in my mind at the time, I was overly cheesily nice to the rest of the team. And you know what? Surprise, surprise, it worked, right? I bonded with the others. They appreciated my support on issues. And a month later, they made me their first SDR manager. So ultimately, it would have been so easy for her in that situation to blame a lack of promotion or, a lack of experience or, a pivot to the plan in not giving me that promotion. But she bravely told me that what I needed to hear and gave me the feedback that she believed from her view would make me better. And ultimately, what that gave me as an individual contributor at the time was the opportunity to fix the problem. As much as we look at feedback, as much as we look to give feedback to the members of our team, we must also want it in return. The single best move we have made recently in our SDR team is what we're calling SDR feedback sessions. I've always believed the managers and myself to be incredibly approachable individuals. We have five in our UK management team. We're a 100% in-office culture. So you can imagine that with a bunch of young, extroverted individuals that we're very social with, we would have thought that they'd be constantly giving us feedback and giving us the approach that we need. However, as I've stepped further and further away, selfishly, I decided that I was worried, or I was very worried about the fact that I wasn't in the detail nearly as much as I should have been. And so what we started to do is set up these bi-monthly feedback sessions for the team. The trick with this is we didn't want it just to be the usual individuals having the conversation. So instead, we put every team member's name in a randomizer, and we pick 5 people, and they sit in those sessions and join us. We then explain, and this is super important, that this is a safe space, but ultimately, if people want to give anonymous feedback, they can do. They can reach out to HR and tell them. But every single piece of that feedback will be appreciated. The session, the first session we ever did, we actually took someone who'd been in the company for a month, and to this day, it's the single best piece of advice or best piece of feedback that I've ever been given in terms of moving the needle for the organization. And the guy was 1 month in. He's also the biggest introvert that we have in the team, the quietest guy. Of course it happens that way. So for me, there is 2 really imperative parts of the session. Firstly, the way that we deliver it is every single piece of that feedback is we think it's important. And then ultimately, if we disagree with that feedback, and we're licensed to, as leaders, we have complete license to say, you know what, I don't agree with that feedback. But we do not say it in that session so that we're constantly receiving that feedback. Later, we might address that in a one-to-one situation. We might address it in a, if we think it's systemic, we might address it in like a really controlled environment with the rest of the team. But that's incredibly important in terms of delivering that session. Secondly, it's also sending actions after the meeting. So we get the feedback. I then send an email to the whole team saying, look, this is the feedback we've received, and these are the actions that we're going to take as part of that. And what that's doing is it's holding us as a management layer accountable for that situation, as well as making sure that the team, the next time they go up, have I lost it? The team, the next time we go up to those sessions, continue to receive that positive feedback. So, ultimately, as leaders, it's our responsibility to give clear and honest feedback to our team members, even when it's uncomfortable and difficult. And by doing so, we can help our team reach their full potential and achieve. But it is also our responsibility to seek and receive clear feedback and honest feedback, even when it's uncomfortable and difficult as well. So my question to the sales leaders in this room: are you doing enough to proactively seek and give feedback to the team? Is your one-to-one cadence enough to be developing the characters of your employees? And do you think that every member of the team is voicing their thoughts to you to allow you to act upon it? Thank you.
I've joined the membership about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. And as you can probably tell, I'm very uncomfortable with anything public speaking. So what I found really beneficial from the membership is exactly what I'm doing tonight. It's putting myself out of my comfort zone, doing things I don't like doing, and essentially making that a little bit more standard so that I can just include that into my work. I had my first coaching session with Phil. A lot of questions being asked about the why as opposed to the what and the how, and this has had a lot of positive impact already on the way I operate, the way I lead joint flows. And it's just simple as having a conversation with a professional. Let this person essentially guide the conversation to areas where I wouldn't have proactively pushed the conversation to, and then using the knowledge to improve. Sales confidence is a no-brainer. Whether you're doing it for your own personal development or for your career development or for your business, join the membership is worth it. you're going to meet a lot of people.
I'm going to welcome up our next speaker, who is Simon Sharp. He's the CRO at SureCloud. He's going to be talking about sweet equity, exploring an alternative to stock options as a leadership incentive. Quick intro and a bit of information about Simon. He's an international business leader with a passion for fraud and cyber security. There you go. Who knew? Passion for fraud sounds a bit interesting if you isolate that bit, doesn't it? A wealth of experience as a sales leader. He's spanned over 15 years across companies including Entrust, RSA, Pindrop Security, Cyber Reason, and Observe IT, and now obviously SureCloud. And Simon also co-founded Risk Exchange, an AI-assisted platform designed to help companies identify and manage their cybersecurity in real time. Would you please welcome Simon to the stage? Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Hope you're having a good time enjoying the talk so far. I'm certainly learning a thing or two from the speakers, so thanks very much for that. That's been great. Radical candor, that's the key thing there, I think. But James has asked me to come on stage tonight just to talk to everyone a bit about sweet equity. I wanted to tie this in with more of a broader talk pattern around the importance of sales incentives as well as recognition for people. And I think that everyone's been touching on that so far throughout the presentation so far this evening. So, you know, we're working in a world that's very challenging. I know James mentioned that at the top there. You know, some people are calling it a bear market, you know, a downturn. You know, it is very, very tough for us all out there. And it's obviously super important for us all to remember that we need to keep ourselves, but also the whole team motivated in the best ways we can. That can't be understated, right? It's all about the people and the employees and the sales teams that you have that's always going to be able to take you out of these times we're living in right now, right? And everyone's finding it tough. So the question, you know, we're asking ourselves is, how do we keep everybody motivated? We're retaining our best talent, our top performers. You know, how's the best way of we're doing this, right? Now, actually, the best way of doing this is trying to create intrinsic value for people, you know, and the sellers and the teams and basically anybody actually is going to be able to drive themselves, get the best out of themselves, achieve their goals by having that intrinsic value and that meaningful, purposeful satisfaction. Okay, so that's the first thing I would say. And research has proven this. You know, there's many people that have touched on this subject, including, you know, Abraham Maslow, if you go back to the 60s, where, you know, we're talking about the need for self-actualization and ultimately finding meaning and purpose in the work that you do, right? So, you know, my recommendation would always be to create an environment where people can do their best work and they're feeling that they've got that meaningful and that purpose every day they come into the office, right? So that's definitely number one. I guess the cherry on the cake, though, is then you move more on to what we call extrinsic value, where this probably falls more into the commission schemes, the cash, the non-cash incentives that we put out there. You know, everyone's familiar with commission schemes and special incentives, spiffs, president's clubs. You know, all of these things are key, that we've got to remember that these are super important, even if we are feeling the pinch and we feel like we're not in a position where cash is free flowing in our businesses, right? So it's super important to always keep that in mind. Learning programs, development, self-development, career progression, you know, these are all key things to drive not only extrinsic benefits for employees, but obviously coming back to the intrinsic value that is paramount. A lot of companies, particularly obviously the early stage companies, startups, scale-ups, will offer equity as an additional incentive in that way, right? And I think most people will be familiar with the terms of stock options, restricted stock units, RSUs, right? And they're super important to make sure that you're able to attract, in the first place, on board and retain top talent within your businesses, right? So it's super important to be able to offer those to individuals within your business and give back, right? It's super important. Now, I wanted to just go down the road, and I was talking to James a couple of weeks ago when we were at the NED, where I touched on this concept of sweet equity, not sweat equity, which is, if you Google it, sometimes it doesn't know which way you're going with this. But essentially, I'm not sure if anybody's heard of the term sweet equity, as in SWEET. Is anybody familiar with that? I wasn't overly familiar with it, to be honest, until I joined SureCloud just over a year or so ago. And basically, what it is, it's offered by typically early stage companies that are private equity backed, and it's part of an ordinary share. So basically, companies are able to offer some substantial reward by offering ordinary shares or equity in the business when you join the company, and it's typically between 1 to 5, 1 to 6% of the company, right? So this is life-changing, potentially life-changing amounts of money to be offered sweet equity in a business, right? And they are typically, as I say, private equity backed. Now, there needs to be an event for you to get that. There needs to be a liquidity event, i.e., some type of acquisition or an IPO. There needs to be something that happens, and that typically happens quite quickly with private equity firms because everyone's looking to grow really fast, and you've got typically 2 to 3 year cycles where you do see events, right? So it's super important if you can to get that. And, we're not talking, small amounts of money. Most people are making, maybe 7, maybe even 8 figures as part of that, depending on how successful the company is, right? And that's paid out after preference capital, right? So it's part of ordinary shares. So it essentially means you get a share of the growth of the profit or the gain, the upside in any of these companies, right? So I thought it was just interesting to share that concept if anybody's not familiar with it. And it's, it's obviously a big thumbs up to private equity firms and the ones that, go and seek those companies out, and put yourself forward, because that's absolutely, a great way to, as I say, attract, retain top performers within the business and just give everyone that goal and that motivation, even in the bad times, to be able to help grow the company. So what I'd say, from a takeaway perspective is, we're just trying to make sure that we're all fully motivated. The team has got everything to go after. Number one always comes back to intrinsic value, right? You've got to make sure that you create a work environment where people can find meaning and purpose and satisfaction in their day-to-day work and day-to-day business, right? That is definitely number one. Number two, extrinsic value in the form of cash and non-cash commission schemes, flows, compensation, recognition. Go one step further, offer stock options, RSUs, but if you can get to sweet equity or private equity, even better. And then thirdly, and create that culture and that environment where you just create an environment where you can continually develop your career, learn, feel safe, drive happiness and well-being and fulfillment in your day-to-day work, right? Because it's the journey that counts, not the final destination that sometimes we all forget about. Thank you.
From the speakers tonight, I really enjoyed Jim Preston. He talked about hiring more A players, and I found that really useful because I think we often, I guess, compromise in the hiring process. So it was useful to see some ideas around how we could eliminate some of the people that may not bring the most value to our business. So yeah, Jim was great. I really enjoy coming to Sales Confidence. Firstly, I always meet great people. Always meet people that can add value to my network, people I can learn from. And then the 7-minute talks are fantastic. So I don't think there's been a 7-minute talk that I've not taken at least one note from that I could take away and sort of implement within the business. So for me, it's about, again, sharing sort of ideas of like-minded people. It's about getting value from people who are dealing with the same challenges as you, but maybe approaching it a different way. And I think we all live within our bubble. We live within that world where we do things the same way and we get the same advice and the same people say the same things to us. So hearing people who are in different businesses that have the same challenges but are doing it a different way makes me think differently and makes me go about things in a different way, or maybe approach things in a way that I might not have done before and challenge my thinking. So yeah, I think the membership's a great idea.
So next up is Jim Preston. Jim actually was on our stages, maybe 3-4 years ago, when we did an event at the Olympic Park, and I'm glad to have him back. So thanks for joining us. Jim is the Vice President of Sales for a company called Ben. He's going to be talking about hiring A players. Jim brings over 2 decades worth of experience as a sales leader, spending time at companies like Salesforce, Showpad, most recently Sedna. He's recently joined Ben, the platform that is on a mission to make employee benefits work for everyone, where he'll be growing the high performance team. Can we have a big round of applause, please, for Jim? Thank you.
Hello, nice to be back. Thank you, James. Look, my name's Jim Preston, I'm VP Sales at Ben, and I'm going to talk to you about hiring A players, but also why I think it's more important that we hire A players now than it ever has been. And so, look, a bit of an intro on me and to sort of give you some background as to why I think I'm confident enough to stand up here and talk to you about this. Been in sales for 20 years, as James says, 20 years selling tech, 12 of those in SaaS. I've worked as an IC in SMB, mid-market, enterprise, then as a sales leader, doing exactly the same as the companies James has just sort of covered off. In that time, I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've got some experience, got some questions that I think have actually helped me, understand what good looks like. But recently, luckily enough, with Ben, I'll come on to Ben in a minute, our investors, Atomico, by the way, they're very good, they introduced me to some of the very influential sales leaders from Snowflake, who built the business in Europe over the last 10 years. And they interviewed thousands and thousands of AEs, and they hired hundreds of AEs, and they built out a bit of a prolific kind of plan about analyzing data that correlated top performers with the key characteristics that they displayed. Did this over a number of years, and they as a team worked tirelessly on it. And they shared with me what they uncovered in all those years of that research and what the 5 key characteristics, which they called the DNA of A players, they then look for in their hires. And lo and behold, as they continued to do that, sales performance only increased. These are top performers that again and again overachieve, and the rock stars we all want in our teams. So I'll come on to that shortly, and the takeaway at the end of this will be that I'm going to give you my 5 favorite interview questions that correlate with those key characteristics. So quickly, VP Sales at Ben. Who are Ben? Ben are the fastest growing benefits platform that you've never heard of. We take benefits, can quite often be quite dry, right? Pension over here, life insurance over there. Not quite sure what you've got. Engagement is low. We change all of that. We increase engagement by 90%. We reduce admin by 80%. And we reduce costs by 24%. It's a bit of a win-win-win. And as I mentioned, I've joined Ben. I've been given this kind of guidance and a bit of a brief from Snowflake, and I want to share that with you today. So, moving on. Snowflake also mentioned there's 2 things happening in the industry why I think this is more important than ever. Number 1 is, as we talked about already a few times this evening, actually the changing market. A lot of us have got smaller teams. There's less AEs now in our teams to carry that number. If somebody misses, the delta is bigger, right? Meaning you haven't got room for B and C players. You need A players, right? Number 2 is technology. ChatGPT, AI, automation is going to revolutionize the sales industry in the next, I don't know how many months. We don't know how, but I think downstream, lead gen, business development, SMB, transactional run rate business is going to become heavily automated. And those teams are going to change dramatically. But what that does, in my mind at least, it actually creates upstream, mid-market enterprise strat. It actually creates an opportunity for A players to carry bigger quotas and be given highly qualified, nurtured, warm sales leads. And they're going to have to run a multiple stakeholder, multiple champion, long, complex sales process that can't be automated. So I think with change at one end of the market comes opportunity at the other end of the market. With that, I think you'll also find that some of those A players will carry quotas 3, 4, 5 million, not the whatever million we're giving them now. You don't want to have a B player with a 5 million quota that comes in at half that number and gives you a 2.5 million gap, right? If someone's carrying 1 million and they hit 50%, you've only got 500,000 gap. So this is the need to have A players. And this is nothing new. We've been in sales between us for many, many years, and we try and do this each and every day. And Steve Jobs is famous for talking about, or was famous, talking about the need to have A players on your team. Just Google it. There's loads of quotes, and a couple that I love are, number one, if you hire A players, they are self-policing, because A players only hire A players, meaning that your business is full of A players. He also said quite famously that a small team of A players will run rings around a large team of B and C players. And also, B players hire C players, and C players hire D players. You get the point. I'm going to give you this for free. It's called the Keeper test. You may know it, you may not. The Keeper test is a really simple way for you to assess whether you have A players in your team today. It comes from a book called No Rules Rules. This is the Netflix story. If you've not read it, strongly recommend it. The Keeper test is very simple. One of your team walks up to you today and they quit. You've got two choices. You fight to retain them, or you let them go with a handshake and say all the very best. If they're in the latter, they're not A players, and they're preventing you from having an A player on your team. So do yourself a favor, offer them a lump of money and tell them you need more from that role and ask them to move on. And then you've got a gap for an A player that you can bring in. If you would fight to keep them and they're an A player, make sure you're paying them well. Give them good benefits, and they may stick around and perform for you as the market changes. So 5 key characteristics. This is what all the work done by Snowflake actually uncovered. These are the things that correlated with sales performance again and again and again. Number one, the big one, by far the biggest, probably 50% of the influence was tied to this, is drive. The grit, the engine, the work ethic, the hunger, right? You can't make that up. You've either got it or you haven't. Number 2, IQ, EQ. We want intelligent people. We also want street smart people that can read people and read the room and adapt and think on their feet. Number 3, curiosity. Someone that naturally is curious about the company, about their prospect, about their clients, wanting to know more, and actually within the company they work as well. Number 4, coachability. We all know that one. People that can be given advice and feedback and coaching and take it and adapt and get different outcomes. And number 5, extreme ownership. Not just ownership, extreme ownership. And that is the accountability layer. Don't worry, boss. I got this. I've got a plan. Last thing, my 5 favorite interview questions for those 5 key characteristics. For drive, the question is, tell me why you need to be successful. Not why you want to be successful, why you need to be successful. There should be a story there about what drives them and what gets them out of bed on a daily basis to just have that energy and that drive. Number 2, EQ, IQ. I say question, this one normally throws them. I hit them with 3 questions at once, because I want to see how they think. Can they articulate an answer without panicking? And in what order do they answer? The 3 questions are, how do you think this interview is going? What do you think I think of you? And if you could start over again, what would you do differently? Okay, it's a toughie. How do you think this interview is going? What do you think I think of you? And if you could start over, what would you do differently? Number 3, for coachability, probably one we're familiar with. What's the toughest bit of feedback you ever received? Why was it tough? Did you disagree? How did you react? What did you do differently? What was the outcome? Yada, yada. Curiosity, probably my favorite interview question. Tell me something about my business that I would be surprised that you know. Why? Because of the fact that it just shows they've done their research. I want them to validate us as the employer as much as we're trying to find out if they're the right person for us. Not just the top level stuff on our website, something that I'd be surprised that they know. That one normally stumbles a few people. And then finally, the last one, this is around extreme ownership. A broad question. Walk me through in detail how you run your business today. And what I'm not looking for is, this is my territory and here's my quota and this is the team that I work with. I'm looking for, my territory plan looks like this. These are my key accounts. This is my run rate. This is my transactional. This is the pipe that I need. Here, as I break down my quota, here's my activity. This, I work with my SDR. I want that level of detail. And non-A players can't make this up in an interview. It just falls to pieces. And like I say, I've been doing this for a while. The Snowflake stuff really, really helped. And at the moment, I know there's not many of us hiring, but when we are hiring, if you can bring in an A player, it will make a fundamental difference, in my opinion, to your business and your outcomes. Thank you very much. My name is Jim Preston.
We're going to invite our final speaker for the evening up to the stage, who's Conor Moakley. Conor Moakley is a senior sales leader at 6 Sense, and he's going to be talking about troubleshooting your onboarding, talking about what 6 Sense have learned about onboarding in the last 6 months or so, particularly in the macroeconomic outlook, and how to adjust your approach in this environment. Originally from California, tells me he's 24, but he was lying apparently earlier. He's not quite that young as young as he looks. He began his career in finance before moving into sales as a business development role at 6 Sense in 2018, before moving to the UK with 6 Sense. And he's moved into his current role, in which he leads enterprise and mid-market sales teams right across EMEA. Welcome to the stage, Conor. Good luck. Enjoy your speech. Welcome to Conor to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yes, no? All right, this is the last one. Thanks for that. Do we have any other Americans here? You can raise your hands, don't be shy. Hey guys, good to see you. So yes, as you can tell by my funny accent, I grew up on the other side of the Atlantic, came over from our San Francisco office. I have been at 6 Sense for 5 years now. When I started, if you guys know anything about 6 Sense, we depend on and work with your CRM, a bunch of other data, your revenue tech, leverages. I didn't know what Salesforce was when I started at 6 Sense. My onboarding was, here you go, you're a BDR, start emailing. So, I was probably the 68th employee at 6 Sense. Onboarding was just get to work, basically. I moved through the business. We're over 1,200 employees now. It's been a fantastic journey and great success. I always worked really well alone. So when I moved over here, because my wife was transferred for work, she worked at KPMG at the time, I was like, this is great. I'm going to be 5 hours ahead of my territory. I've got this great structure for my day. I'm fully onboarded. There's nothing 6 Sense could throw me that I wouldn't know how to handle. This is an awesome setup. In the last 12 months, we've gone from a team of 3 people over here to a team of 50, and that includes 18 quota carriers. I was fortunate enough to have done well enough where now I'm leading, as we said, one of our sales teams. So I had to hire a brand new team starting in Q3 of last year of new reps from outside of the business who had never sold anything like 6 Sense before. We hopefully got some A players. So I had to learn how to onboard people for the first time. And bringing along 7 reps in almost simultaneously over 7 months will teach you a lot about what works and what doesn't work for onboarding. We've all mentioned the current economic climate that we're dealing with, so maybe we're not hiring in the numbers we were 3, 4, or 5 years ago, or even 12 months ago. For the hires that we have brought on, think of the people that you've been working with, are the newest members of your team. And maybe that extra bit of care that you put into making them successful and setting them up for success. So what I want to talk through in the next 5 minutes or so is what I've learned, what we've done to what we believe give reps a strong foundation. Some of the stuff that surprised us from the reps while they were being onboarded, and then adjustments we made along the way that if you guys are onboarding anybody right now, I would highly recommend you incorporate. So what do we do to set the reps up for success? Number one, we took a look at different data sets. Now I've got the benefit of using 6 Sense for this, but we wanted to make sure, well look, if we're creating 18 territories over the next 12 months, let's leverage data to do it. We need to look at the right tech stack, revenue range, industry, country that they're based in, important factors for how we sell our business. Next, we needed to look at, well, what is marketing doing right now to set this rep up for success? We don't even have a name for this person. It's really, really exciting when you're interviewing candidates, if you know that they're excited to work with you or for you. You can tell them, hey, we're already warming up your territory. That's one of the benefits of working at 6 Sense. You should just see their faces light up. If you're a 6 Sense customer, we'd love to say hi to you afterwards. It's really, really cool to drop it in an interview. By the way, I've been looking at your territory before this interview. We've got some exciting opportunities that are coming down the pipe. Now, what was surprising to us was as we onboard reps, I think it's probably it is because of the economy. There's almost like this secondhand shock of, well, my last job, the economy started to tank and deals were few and far between, so I can't afford to mess up. When you're onboarding, you're terrified of messing up. I had the benefit of not really knowing any better, but It's the reality of what we're selling in today. So what we realized was reps were spending more and more time on deals. They weren't working their book. They weren't eager to go out and prospect as they would have been maybe in a different economy or a better economy. So to combat that, we pivoted and actually kind of restructured the way that their weeks were structured. So hey, if you're worried about your deals going well, start your day off with deal correspondence. Get it out of the way. Do it while you have your coffee. Get back into prospecting immediately after that. You'll have your meetings in the afternoon. If that doesn't work for you, change your schedule a bit. But if you're throwing this much time and effort into the 2 deals you've got while you're a newly onboarded rep, you're going to make mistakes in those deals. You can't afford to let the ball drop in terms of generating pipeline. So we worked really, really closely with our new reps to go through, hey, let's just put a pause on deal review. Let's not talk about your prospecting numbers. How are you doing in terms of your week structure? Seriously, check in with your reps on how their weeks are going, how they're managing their time, because we're all feeling the pressure. I guarantee they're feeling it as much as we are, if not more, if they're a new rep. Some of the tricks that we've learned in the last few months, double down on your partners. I'm sure everybody here works at a company that has really strong partnerships, new partnerships, partnerships that may have even gone cold. Guys, leverage your partners. They're either, they have your prospects as customers, or they're co-selling and you're competing for the same budget. It's a great way to help your reps learn the pain points of what their territory is going through. It's a great way to get them to understand, hey, you're not in this alone. It makes the job easier. The last thing that we implemented with the new hires, and I don't think any of them are here, but they hate me for it, but it has worked, is we doubled down on territory mapping. And I don't mean who are we connected to? Do we have a prior opportunity? I mean, I think it was what Jim was talking about there. So go and learn the companies that you're trying to sell to. I figured if we could develop this sense of anticipation, I know I'm going to get an opportunity with these guys. And when I do, I'm going to stand out to them as the rep that somehow, we should have hired this guy or this woman before they got the 6th sense. Get them to double down on knowing who they're going to be selling to, and you'll see kind of a glow in their eyes almost of, I know how we can break into this account. I know how we can win the deal once we get there. So if you're not doing that with your reps, I highly recommend it. It's a fun exercise. It gives you even more insight as a hiring manager into how does their brain work, what excites them, what are they good at. So that's one of the additional things that I've learned. Overall, guys, we're all in this together. It's great to be surrounded by fellow salespeople. I spent most of the pandemic away from home, surrounded by accountants. My wife's an accountant, so it's really, really nice to have a community here like this. So thanks for having me up here, and happy to talk onboarding after if anybody wants to.
We're just going to run through any questions from the audience. So if you've got something interesting to ask, I'm happy to come out and run a mic to you if you'd like to pose it at one person. We're just going to try and restrict it to 1 or 2 people per question. Thinking a couple of events before we've kind of gone along the line. So I want to get through as many questions as we can, if that's okay. So if you've got a question, pop your hand up. If nobody's got their hand up, I'm going to ask a question. Fine, David, I've got a question for you, prepared, ready and ready to go. My question for you is, 2018, SDRs looked a bit different to the way they do in 2023. What are the traits that you're looking for now that you maybe weren't looking for in 2018? Or what are the things that you're seeing that they're great at that they weren't doing back then?
It's the same. I'm sorry, fundamentally, it all comes down to drive and work ethic. Every LinkedIn influencer will tell you that everything's changed and you can make 6 calls, super targeted calls, and then book 6 meetings if you do it in a really targeted way. We know that the connect rate is 8% at best, and you're not going to get through to every single person. So don't believe that's LinkedIn influencers tell you what you want to believe, or what they're advertising to a demographic, and so they say that. But I would say, the one thing I would say is that there is a lot more strateginess. Creativity really goes a long way. We're big on voice notes. We're big on video, everything that is unique. And so those innovative thinkers within the SDR team that are pushing the boundaries and exploring those new options. But that was the same in 2018 as well. So, sorry that that's a really boring answer.
That's great. Thank you. I love that dial to connect rate is really interesting because as on LinkedIn we see it's, the doomsayers say it's 2%, and it's nice to hear that you're...
Depends if you use Cog as well.
Well, that's exactly right. Too right. Cognism customer, obviously. Guys, any questions from the audience? Someone pop their hand up, give us a question. No, all the pressure. Here we go. I'm going to go find someone over here. Just give me a second.
Hey guys, a couple of you touched on the subject of incentives. So Antoine, James, specific to comp plans, we get sense more than ever that simplicity is probably king right now. What are some of the pitfalls? Well, either way, what are some of the cool innovations in comp plans that you've seen working, or conversely, what are some of the common mistakes you've seen in over-egging the pudding, so to speak?
I can take that one. So you're right about simplicity. I think it's not only a matter of simplicity, but more of clarity, because you can have a complex comp plan, because you have a complex business, multiple territories, multiple products, and you need to make it complex, but it can still be clear for the reps to understand it. And then in terms of like common pitfalls, one I see is not paying the reps too often. So some companies, they say, we have long sales cycles, so we can only measure the performance on a yearly basis, and we will pay like semesterly, something like this. But it's still possible to have monthly payments with target achievements on a longer period. So that's one of the pitfalls. Obviously, there's many others. But that's one that came to mind.
Yeah, I'd agree. Let's try that one.
Just take a second and set it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, I think it's about keeping it simple is key, but it is what leading indicators are you measuring? And I think sometimes you can fall in the trap of getting down to the activity route where it's like, right, I need 50 calls a day, I need 100 emails a day. You can really fall down to basically then you end up driving quantity over quality at that point. It is an interesting balance on what you're actually measuring. We typically measure SQLs or meetings booked, SQLs or an SQOs created, as opposed to we are tracking activity as well, but I don't set comp plans based on activity levels. And I just, because it all leads into, for me, it's about the quality meetings. Ultimately leads to the win rates. You want to make sure your win rates are up and you've got quality going downstream. Otherwise, you just get a lot of rubbish in at the front, which, obviously can drive poor behaviour or problems further downstream.
Thank you. Question over here. Matt, come to you. Hello, mate.
Cheers, mate. I had a question for Jim. Really enjoyed the talk around A players, B players. And I wanted to flip the question to think about the existing team. Because obviously in an ideal world, we'll only ever hire A players. Yeah. But the reality is, like, lots of us are looking at our existing teams and unfortunately going through that performance management process. I was curious to understand, what other data are you using to assess your existing team to really figure out whether there's B players in there that could make the step up to A players and who to probably let go?
It's like a really good question. I'm 6 weeks into my new role, and so I'm going through something like this now. The team were being managed directly by the COO, was the busiest guy in the world. I'm now there, giving him all the time in the world, but I'm trying to understand what's my baseline and who can step up. The one thing that I've done, funnily enough, on the back of the talk I've just given, was actually say to my team, hey, look, this is what I believe are the 5 key characteristics of performance, right, in a sales role. And I've asked them to score themselves on those 5 things. And then based upon where they've scored lower, we then talk about, well, how do we move you up? What do we do? And then we get into the conversation and the plan about whether they can move up, whether they've got that ability, whether they're coachable, et cetera, et cetera. So I've actually used that as my benchmark to say, hey, look, and it's my job then to help support you and give you what you need in order to actually achieve whatever targets we set for ourselves. So whether that works out or not, I'll let you know, but that's what's currently going on.
Jim, can maybe a B player can become an A player? Can a C player become an A player?
Personally, I don't think so. I even think as sales leaders, the more interviews that we know, I think you kind of have a bit of a gut feel, but you need to validate this, right? Data-driven decisions, etc. And we all know if it's a don't know, it's a no. And so I'm not convinced, no. I think some B players can't move up. They're just B players. A players tend to remain A players.
Got you. Anyone want to add anything on that? No? Okay, I'll come back to the audience. It's one over here. I'm going to run down here. Thank you.
Thanks for the great talks, guys. Conor, this one is for you. You mentioned leaning on your ecosystem and doubling down on partnerships. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes. Yeah. So doubling down on partnerships. We use a tool. I'm sure a lot of folks in this room have heard of Crossbeam. I've really have loved using that. It's a free endorsement for Crossbeam, I guess today. It's a tool that basically collates partnerships that you have, and it can put it into your CRM. So if you work at Crossbeam, that was a really good question. For me, it's been, especially as someone who's in a different country, it's been really, really useful. Coming from San Francisco, your friends work at all these companies, right? And I just don't have that here. So as it turns out, there's a huge network of Americans that work at most of the tech partners that we have at 6 Sense. So I've been able to kind of get my way into my reps into conversations, and it really just starts with an email. Hey, notice that you guys you had this logo on your website, or we noticed you guys have them as a customer. We'd love to just pick your brain on how things are going. Do you guys need any help? And honestly, in the last 6 months, there hasn't been too much of a rush to say, hey, can we sell to them as well? Because everyone's trying to protect their customer base. But it's been really, really useful for like just value-driven professional messaging to connect with your buyers for a lot of sales cycles that are taking longer, but we're getting in first and we're winning those deals. So honestly, it just comes from being curious, following your instinct to connect with people as a sales rep or a sales manager or a sales leader, and just asking to have those conversations. I think you'd be surprised. People are actually usually excited to connect and collaborate on these things. Yeah.
There's one just down here.
Hello. As a coach, would you agree with that a B player can never be an A player?
I was actually going to comment on that, so thank you for the question. I think B players, yes, definitely can. And to be honest, I think everybody has an opportunity to up level. And I think I loved your talk, by the way, about A players. But I also think that to attract A players, you need to be an A player organisation. And I don't think everybody is an A player organisation. So there is a marketplace for B players and C players in organisations that are not that top tier. But to answer your question, I think that whether you can be an A player in an A player company, perhaps not. But I think everybody can up a level with the right guidance, the right coaching, the right environment created for them. Yes.
Just feeding on from that coaching piece, Jamie, I'd be interested to get your take on this around, I guess, just the environment around seeing companies investing in training. We've talked about the macroeconomic environment and where people are spending their money and people laying off and all the rest of it. I guess there's a more of a focus on actually we've got people in the business that are doing well. We need to be investing in them. What are you seeing when you're talking to companies right now around the appetite to invest in training to the people that they've got are doing well?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's quite conflicting actually. So we're seeing some companies saying we don't want to change anything. We're worried with how things are, and we want to just kind of retract and see how things are in the next few months. And then there are some companies that are saying, okay, what can we do that's available out there that's going to give us a chance to actually improve things right now so that when we get to the end of where we are right now and things start coming back up, because we've seen peaks and troughs throughout all sectors for years and years and years. And if you do the right things now and you get your A players in place, like these guys are saying, you get your training in place, you get the systems, you get the people, you get the culture and everything else in place, and training influences all of that, absolutely. Then when we come up on the upward curve again, you're going to be ahead of the game. And all of the other companies out there, those that are retracting right now and saying, okay, I don't want to change things, I suspect might get bitten a bit at that point. I don't know, but that would be my guess.
Jim, do you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add something on the back of the question. Actually, it was a really good question about can they move up? A couple of things. One is time is something here we need to bear in mind, right? Because I think anybody can move up, but I think the way that the market is going to change with technology, it's like, well, okay, I could maybe move someone from C to A if I had 18 months. Have I got 18 months? And if you have, great. But if you've, and so there is an element of time that I'm assuming we're all in a bit of a hurry to try and get the best we can get out of our team. Second thing is, if you think about the characteristics, there's three there. There's the drive, there's the curiosity, and there's the coachability. An acronym that I kind of live by is REKS, R-E-K-S. And R is results. And results come from the effort, which is the drive, multiplied by the knowledge and the skill, which is the curiosity and the coaching. And I say to my team, hey, look, I'm going to give you the K and the S. We're going to give you the knowledge, we're going to give you the skill. You bring the drive, that's a non-negotiable. You've got to apply that effort, and then we'll get the results. And so if somebody hasn't got the curiosity and the coachability and the drive, no matter what it's not going to happen. And so that's why sort of, it sounds I'm a bit cold by saying no, is because it will be such a long time to get them there that we'd probably be sacked before we end up getting them to that point.
Any more questions from the audience? I've got one up here. Emma.
Hi, so I've just joined with Owen as an SDR, and it's been briefly mentioned tonight about how AI is going to change the role of an SDR in the next 12 months. I'd love to hear your insights into how exactly you think it's going to change the role, and also any skills which you think I could start to learn now so that I'm best prepared to be adapted for the change in the next 12 months in the future.
David's in.
Okay, so I actually have a SDR that joined a month ago. Are you okay with saying what you said in our interview? Yes. Yeah, awesome. By the way, Jack's been our top performer. We hired 11 people. He's outperformed everybody else, right? He's absolutely killing it. So just...
So I asked a similar question in my interview just over 2 months ago now, and that was, Dave, how is AI going to integrate into your workflow at Cognizant with your SDRs?
And you said, and I said.
This isn't working very well, got to admit.
Dave said to me that he doesn't see it integrating much because at the end of the day, it is the amount that the SDR team put in, and their managers play an important role in providing that feedback to the SDR team and making sure that they're applying that feedback. And feedback's something AI can't replace. So they'll never take over that role that a manager will, or be able to integrate into that workflow, because it is the effort at the end of the day.
So I absolutely said that, but what Jack said to me, and it still stands out to this day, is he goes, I'm so thankful, because I basically said that ultimately sales is about human emotion. And what Jack said to me is, I'm so glad you said that, because it is, right? Like if we really think about sales, it's about a human connection and nothing else. So I think it's a hype. I might be wrong. I really think I'm wrong. I think there's some value in it from a research perspective, like finding research very quickly. I'm using it for Excel when I don't know how to put numbers together. I'll type it in ChatGPT, but outside of that, I really think sales is fundamentally about human emotion. And that's exactly what Jack said in his interview. So that's my belief.
Thank you. Jack can remember that, though. He got the job, though. Good on you, Jack. Well done. Anyone want to add anything on the AI point? Because I think it is an interesting... No? Yeah? Go for it.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I think the hyper personalization thing's really interesting, though, with ChatGPT. So I think it's parts of it. I think it's not going to take over I'm just going to plug it into ChatGPT and it's just going to, make all the SDRs redundant and it's just going to be in this automated flow, right? But there are bits of it that are useful. The thing I was going to say, though, to your point, Dave, is about, customer-led growth, i.e., a lot in these types of bear market, downturn, whatever you want to call it, right? It's more about if you've got customer base, it's not about necessarily the acquisition end, which we always talk about. It's more about making most of the existing customers that you've already got. And that comes back to the relationships, Dave, I think you were touching on there about making sure that you are looking after your customers, and that is personal relationships, and that is, you know, that it is that day-to-day communication that ChatGPT, you know, may be able to help a little bit with that if you're just going to be, you know, nurturing and you're going to be sending things out from time to time. But ultimately, it's going to come down to those personal relationships and getting the voice of the customer, talking to their friends and their friends to get those referrals to bring quality business in, right? So if you want to get really picky, you don't necessarily want some customers because they're going to cause you a lot of cost and a lot of pain downstream. What you want is the quality customers, which will come from the quality customers that you've already got and their friends introducing you in that way. And I've definitely seen that. We did an analysis recently, and where did our deals come from in the last 3 or 4 years? And it's quite interesting when you start breaking it down, you realise that a good chunk of your quality customers and revenue is coming from people that have moved on from company to company or have introduced you to their friends and their peer group. So I'm sort of becoming more of a buy-in of this flywheel funnel rather than a top to bottom and focusing too much on acquisition and focusing more on the customer-led side.
So here's the thing, right? I've been saying for years as people have jumped on the cold calling is dead wagon and all the rest of it. It's like the whole time humans are buying, humans selling will be the most important thing. So everything else is a tool, and that's certainly my take on it. I think we need to wrap up with one final question. If it's okay, I'm just going to fire that at Jim. Jim, you're going to grab a mic quickly. How do you think your talk went today? And what do you think we think of you? Is that the question?
I spoke very quickly, so I had a lot of words to get in. And oh, look, I'm sure I'll get some feedback afterwards, right? Like, I enjoyed it.
Was there a third part of the question? What was the third part of the question? How would you do it differently? What would you do it differently if I start again?
You know, I got a few things wrong, but no one would know that in the room because of the fact that only I knew the words. So actually, I'm not sure I would change anything.
Sorry, I had to do that because I just thought I'd practice it, and it's nice to see things in practice. Theory's great, practice is much, much better. Guys, would you give a round of applause to all of our panelists? Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.